This next story comes out of a podcast that I was listening to, a Barry Weiss podcast, with Financial Times reporter Patrick McGee, and it flips the script on everything we thought about Apple and their role with China. So the popular belief is that Apple is exploiting cheap Chinese labor so they can scale, right? But McGee argues it's the other way around, that China exploited Apple and Beijing opened the door on purpose, not out of goodwill, of course, but out of a long-term strategy to let Apple in order to extract industrial processes, train millions of workers, and build a tech empire of its own. So the bigger implications here with regard to America's monster corporations partnering with a foreign adversary economically, technologically, and geopolitically are of concern. And again, Lindy, I know you want this one.
Yeah.
Go for it.
And I mentioned this before. I'm with President Trump on tariffs because somebody needed to do it. Somebody needed to kick China in the ass. And I'm saying it as someone of Chinese descent. China has been unfairly exploiting our international system for decades, especially, I mean, since the era of Deng Xiaoping, as you mentioned, but especially since they entered the WTO in 2001. And so what they do is steal the technical know-how of these American behemoths like Apple and then make it their own. It's what they did with the phones and the cars and now AI. And so our treasure of NVIDIA now has to compete with China. But it was our technology to begin with. And also the electric vehicles, there's so many things that they took from us. So I'm completely with Trump in his attempt to make sure that we are finally on a modicum of a level playing field.
I think this is a mutually exploitative setup, okay? I don't think for 1 second that American-based corporations are like, oh, the poor innocent corporations, they're getting their, IP stolen by big bad China. Of course China's gonna steal your IP, of course. Okay, oh, I don't wanna pay American workers to make my product.
Right.
I wanna exploit labor in China. And China's like, yes, come to us. We'll make your products. And yeah, they're gonna steal the IP. That is what they do. It is a foreign country. They have no loyalty to America or Americans. Of course they're gonna do this. So look, the Pandora's box was opened during the Bill Clinton administration, and I just find it kind of gross that now all of these companies that have enjoyed massive profits as a result of exploiting labor abroad are now making themselves out to be the victims. I'm not buying it.
700 million, by the way, since Tim Cook moved them over to China. That was the jump in how much money they were making, how much profit. But here's something also to think about. So Apple trained 28 million Chinese workers and essentially transferred the industrial capabilities to China. But it goes on to explain that Apple has inadvertently enhanced China's military because of this.
I'm not surprised.
But here's my question, right? So we've talked about, like, okay, China's getting richer, they're stealing our IP, now we're enhancing their military. I'm hearing about chips and vacuums like that are listening to you or something.
We should have been making our own semiconductor chips, period, full stop. You need those chips for almost everything that we use, okay?
Well, we get most of our chips from Taiwan, not China.
Okay, but still, I'm not comfortable with a foreign government or foreign country making products that pertain to national security, pharmaceutical drugs. Those chips are necessary for so many of the products we rely on, devices that are used in hospitals. So look, my point is, it's fine to have a trade relationship with foreign countries in which we're not putting too much on the line. But when we're outsourcing these critical jobs in these critical fields to let's not play dumb.
But then how does tariffs solve the problem? That's my bigger question. So it's like, all right, you're going to tax them more, but you're still giving them.
Well, you're incentivizing.
You're training. I mean, how is this solving a problem?
Trump
is the real answer
saying,
to get out of China? And that's really my question.
Because so the reason for tariffs is this, and I've spent a long time focused on China, and I lived there, worked at a very low level job at the Shanghai American Chamber of Commerce. And I saw this up front, where U.S. companies would come in and U.S. political leaders would go in, and they would just be completely intoxicated with the Chinese system. So you talk about the digital credit score and the control. They love it. American leaders love it. There was this idea that if we open the door to China, it's going to make China more liberal, more liberalized, more democratic, but it's been actually the exact opposite. It's the opposite. We've become more authoritarian, we've become more tyrannical, we've become more centralized, we've become more controlling. And you get these technocrats like a Michael Bloomberg or a Gavin Newsom, they love it. They absolutely love this total control of society, total control, total power. And so, and Wall Street, of course, loves it as well because they get all the margins. And who does it screw over? Like, this is why the Rust Belt is the Rust Belt. This is why Shenzhen looks like it does, and Hong Kong, and Shanghai, and you know, Chicago and Detroit, and everywhere looks the way that they do, or the entire Northeast, basically. And so the issue with tariffs is you've got to do something. You've got, because these opportunists, these mercantilists, they're never going to say, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to be a good American, and I'm going to hire an American because that's the American way, and I want that made in America. They're not going to do that on their own. They're going to say, who makes the cheapest widget? These guys make the cheapest widget, and if they won't do it, by the way, and a lot of the low-cost manufacturing is even now moving down to Vietnam and other parts of
But that doesn't make the situation
Southeast
better.
Asia. No, it doesn't.
It's like,
oh,
we'll just move out of China and go to another foreign country.
And that's why you need tariffs.
China is particularly diabolical, whereas it would seem that Vietnam doesn't have the
You never know
CCP.
what the future holds in regard to our relationships, geopolitically speaking, right?
Well, what
so
is
I
the
just
solution,
think,
though?
There was a whole thing between us and Vietnam at one point,
I
as a matter
remember,
of fact.
yeah.
The
Didn't they move
solution
it to India? I thought that that's what happened.
Well, that
I'm
was
hearing
just the lip
Malaysia,
service. That's
India, Vietnam, but like it's a ping pong ball if it
Okay.
actually moves, or we just charge more. But I don't see how this solves our problem. And I want to
Jillian,
get back to the Newsom thing
purpose-
because you and I can litigate that, and no one's talking about his relationship to China.
Oh, he turned. It's China-fornia. It's China-fornia, and
Called it China SF
And the minute
when he was mayor.
and the minute that he,
Oh yes, he
the minute that Xi Jinping comes over,
yeah.
and suddenly he cleans up the streets, all the homeless are out,
more than that.
That is
all the
true.
crime stops.
That really
but
pissed me
but
off,
you
by the
see
way.
that you see that because that was him showing respect to someone he actually views as powerful, because this is someone that he wants to eventually be on his side when he runs for president.
Absolutely.
He set this up with China SF, which was a partnership with this guy, Vincent Lo, who's a billionaire connected to the CCP. And it essentially facilitated their ability. He's like, oh, we're going to do business together. But you're seeing, exactly, you're cleaning up the cities. And what it does is it clears red tape for them to buy real estate and build things. Meanwhile, Californians can't build a shed, as Bill Marceau famously put it, or put in a toilet without spending 2 years trying to get a permit.
Right.
And then a bill landed on his desk to veto the ability for foreign countries to buy land, farmland in California. I'm sorry. Yes, and he
ban it?
vetoed the bill that was
That's
banning
disgusting.
them from doing it.
Yeah, I don't think-
it is filthy dirty.
Yeah,
and just one more chapter in our Newsom story.
I don't think that foreigners who have no interest in actually living in the United States, who are not living in the United States, should have the ability to buy up American real estate,
Let's go.
buy up American farmland, buy up property close to our military bases. That is so ridiculous. And by the way, we've had a huge problem in this country with foreigners buying up homes, laundering money. Like, they launder their money by buying up U.S. real estate. We have a housing shortage. Why do we not have a federal law to ban this practice? Some states have banned it. Texas and Florida have banned it. But why is it that we don't have a federal law on
What
this?
serious country would allow this?
I mean, Newsom in particular not only started this partnership, he did it under that very open pretense of come do business, build stuff here.
I mean, that's
the
precisely
people
the reason why
involved.
we haven't banned it,
That-
because our politicians benefit from the campaign
That's it.
contributions. And not only
That's
that,
it.
it's not just China, though. Saudi Arabia owns our water rights in Texas. Did you know that?
ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. And it just, Anna, I agree with you on this. No foreign country should be owning real estate in America. They don't have. This actually leads to the issue of anchor babies and why I'm with Trump on the birthright citizenship thing, too. You have a lot of women from Asia, they take vacations here just so their children can be American. Don't tell me this isn't happening, because I actually know people who do this. It's awful.
It's a little bit of a separate issue.
But it's
would
also,
say-
it's just like foreigners exploiting our system, exploiting our open system, our democracy for their own gain, and they just leave.
Well, but to harken back to previous topics we've covered in other shows, when you discuss the Saudis and Qatar spending hundreds of billions, literally billions of dollars on buying influence here, this is why you don't have a federal ban. This is the answer to why it's a problem. I don't know how solve it. But I do think we should be healthily skeptical of these arrangements.
Well, 100%. And I remember, there was a big story that came out during Trump's first term in regard to like some of these Russian oligarchs paying above market price for, his like condos and some of the Trump properties, right? And so that's seen as a way of potentially influencing the president. And there was like a big issue with that. I think all of these practices do need to be banned. I think that there are examples on both sides of the political aisle where this type of influence takes place. We need politicians who want to be public servants and serve the best interests of the American people. Unfortunately, we don't have much of that going on right now.
And
right?
You're right that it's on both sides. You know what's one of the biggest foreign money laundering organizations on the Democratic side? The Clinton Foundation. They took so much money. Like right now, Hillary Clinton's out there playing the holier than thou card, saying, oh, Trump is taking money from Qatar. You know who else took money from Qatar? Tens of millions of dollars? Herself.
Yeah,
so
the corruption runs deep.
It has to be eradicated.
Yeah.
It's absolutely sick, and we touched on this before, but it's also in our universities as well. Our Ivy League system is awash with foreign money. It's sick.
Yeah, it is. Where did I bring us, though? I did what I tried to tell you guys not to do, and I took us all the way off piece to Newsom in China, so I apologize. Bringing us back to the initial subject matter, though, what do we think the solution is?
Well, Elon just needs to make a brand new smartphone, all right? And it's just going to completely replace Apple and everything as we know it.
Well, Jillian, that's what the
Have you signed up for Neuralink yet? Are you in trials?
Super against transhumanism, but that's actually a good point. Yeah, who knows what he would do to the phone as well. I have my skepticisms about Elon, especially when it comes to Neuralink. So that's actually a good point.
It's just one of those things where it's like I love the technology, right? I think we all kind of love technology, but then you have to question, are there limits to it?
Right.
What are the limits? Where do we want to actually hold this down and say, look, are we playing God? Are we playing God with people? What if children get Neuralink? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's gene therapy now.
There's
They
gene
can
therapy,
literally go in utero, apparently, and you can decide if you want to alter your kids.
No way.
But
Oh my goodness.
with every
Designer
issue,
babies.
it's so much
But
more
if you
complex and
could.
nuanced, right? Because if you have, like, let's say the cancer gene in your family,
Yep.
right? That type of scientific advancement can essentially mitigate that cancer gene.
Down syndrome. They can correct it.
Yeah,
with
I just-
technologies like CRISPR, supposedly.
But like any technology or any medical advancement,
Typically, they just abort them.
it can be abused, right?
It's true. It's true. That's
Yeah, no, if you have
Very,
Absolutely.
very
Because
alternative.
my-
Then arguably, if the alternative is, which is sad, but if you could correct it. But then it's like, do you create this Uber race? I mean, really, it does open a lot of Pandora's box.
The movie Gattaca which came out in the '90s. That's Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke was all about this, where the people, and getting back to what you said about digital IDs and centralized control, it set up basically two races of people where you had the valids and the invalids.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I remember seeing that movie, and I was like, this is everything.
is
This is
the
where
future.
it's all going. And I remember, I don't know why I said this, but I said something about, since we're on her take, I guess I'll say this.
Do it.
That I said I would never marry someone who didn't understand this movie. Because I would never want to have kids with someone who didn't understand what this is all about. And so, funny enough, when on one of the first dates I went on with Tanya Tay, my now wife, we actually met Ethan Hawke.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
Talk
like
about
years later.
serendipity. Wow.
And it was because I was still in the military, and he had done a movie about like the drone wars, and they were offering tickets to people in the DC area, and it was actually the same director as the Gattaca, and so they were there doing like a Q&A,
Wild.
and I was like, huh, interesting.
Very cool, yeah.
Perhaps
Him and
pursue
Alex
this
Jones in
further.
Waking Life, they cover this stuff as well, like transhumanism. For me, it's like, yes, if we can cure these diseases, give people ability that they didn't have before, but it's not going to end there, guys. This is
people
going to
who are in
turn into a
accidents,
Black
people
Mirror
who
episode
lost a
where,
limb or
again,
something.
you're going to be
Yeah.
invalid if you don't have this.
Right.
Everyone is going to be hyper intelligent. Everyone is going to be super knowledgeable. Like
Everyone's
all
gonna be
of the
super
things that
attractive.
make-
Are already
all of the
hyper-intelligent.
things that
Just
make
saying.
A little bit of that
all
right
of the
now.
things that make us that make people special, these specialized fields, right? Nothing is going to be special anymore because everybody's going to have the ability, and then it brings us to the point, like you said, where you're either valid or you're an invalid, because if you don't have that, then you're now considered stupid. Because you're not hooked up to this like mainframe that gives you a download of
Because
information.
he was a love baby. That's what they called him. Because
Right.
he wasn't gene spliced.
He was
Yeah.
engineered.
So he was like a love baby, and it gets into questions of, you know, I think it gets into spiritual questions as well.
Yeah,
completely.
Does
I
God
see
have
that.
a role in all of this? Does God have a place for any of this? And at what point are we trying to just play God? And I think
100%.
there's problems with that.
It never
I'm
goes well when
vehemently
we do.
against transhumanism.
Never go what? Sorry?
No, never goes well when it
Listen,
does.
this
when
is
we
where
play
there's
God.
an
Oh, yeah,
argument
yeah.
for regulation to a certain extent.
We saw this
if
in
we had
COVID.
a Congress
We tried this
that was
in COVID,
effective
and
not like
it's a
totally
complete
out to
failure.
lunch, yeah, definitely.
You and I have
Congress
discussed
doesn't.
regulation with regard to
Exactly.
California. Like if you want to legalize something like marijuana or you have to regulate. You can't have people shooting up on the streets.
agree.
Like
Yeah.
if you're gonna,
It's not fair to
think-
the people who live in these communities who have to deal with people literally shooting up and smoking drugs on the streets. It's not okay.
I think regulation, again, like everything, it's always a U-shaped curve where too much of something is bad. But there's definitely a Goldilocks zone where you could
But
exploit
it's so
certain
hard to
technologies.
draw the line, though, because also, like, for example, I'm just going to pick a random trait. Being short is a disadvantage in many circumstances.
Sure is.
So are we going to make that a pathology as well? Or being ugly, or whatever it is, or being, I don't know, like having the wrong hair color. Like, what counts as a disease at the end of the day? It's going to be, the line is going to be redefined every step of the way.
If it gets dystopian enough, it could be believing in God. If you believe in God, that could be considered something that is a
Exactly.
mental illness.
Exactly.
No, seriously, if it got dark and dystopian enough, that could be classified as a mental illness that they could correct with something like Neuralink, if they have that type of power over your brain.
Thank you so much for watching Her Take. If you like the show, can you help us out by subscribing to the channel, clicking the notification button, sharing, commenting, joining the conversation? It helps us out a ton with the algorithm. We appreciate you.